I'm Glenn McGuinness, and this is Outburst. On the program, are you happy with another minority government?
I'm happier with the minority government.
So I don't think the result was worth the election.
Minority government, majority government, it's the same.
Everyone sucked this time around. No one brought their A game out.
Oh well, it is what it is.
But first, even though the final results weren't fully clear even the day after the election, they were clear enough to determine that Justin Trudeau will be keeping his job as Prime Minister, even though the electoral map right across the country hasn't changed that much. So we asked Canadians across the country their thoughts on how things turned out. Our question:
what is your reaction to the federal election results?
My reaction to the federal election results, I mean, I think it came as predicted. Seemed like he took a risk to call the elections. Didn't get the result that he wanted, but we're all in this situation to begin with. Yeah, not much to say really. Kind of just feels like nothing's changed.
Honestly, I think the government called an election for no better reason than to try to get a majority, which I understand, really helps put laws into motion, but they just didn't have it. And it was a waste of time and money as a result.
My reaction to the federal election results, I was really hoping for more of a support for the NDP, honestly, because that's who I voted for. So I was a little disappointed it was Liberal, but I'm glad it wasn't PC, I'll be honest.
I was hoping we would toss Trudeau. I don't think he handled the whole COVID thing very well, and we just got more of them. Now, it's a little better because he doesn't have a majority, but we're still not much better off, in my opinion.
It really seems like it was a pointless election to have. I don't know why Trudeau had to go ahead and call this election. It just seems like it was a waste of money and everyone's time. We could have put that money towards other things.
In my opinion, I think that they made a really bad mistake by taking out the polling, like the voting spots in the universities. So they lost a lot of votes that way because it's obviously not super accessible for someone who's going to university to go to like Bedford or somewhere else to vote.
Well, I'm disappointed. I think that it was unnecessary to call an election during the pandemic. I just think it's an utter waste of $600 million to end up with the same result, actually. So I'm disappointed. And now I'm keeping my fingers crossed that things go well.
I was really hoping for a more conservative vote. I didn't really want to see the Liberals in power anymore. I was looking for the country to take a more conservative stand. I wanted Trudeau out. That's just how I feel about it all.
We spent $600 million in a pandemic, putting people's lives in danger for the same results. And it just shouldn't have been called. He had 2 more years to accomplish his goal, and we're back to where we started from.
Look, elections are always an important time, I think, in any democracy, to take the pulse of people. It looks like we kind of ended up where we started, but that's what the democratic process gave us, and I think it's always important that we learn from these moments where we're reflecting and having discussions and talking about some big policy issues and hopefully settling some differences of approach.
I feel like there's been a lot of effort and a lot of energy put into very little change. And for me, that's a big thing right now, given everything that we've been going through for the last 2 years.
First of all, I'm glad it's a minority government. I'm a bit disappointed that the NDP did not come to power, but they will have an opportunity to keep the Liberals somewhat honest, and I hope that they do not support them when the time comes. And I look forward to the next election when we can once again vote our conscience.
This whole election was a little confusing and really fast. Other ones in the past have been a lot, like, I've understood them a lot better, right? I'm okay with the result for sure, given my leanings, but it still seemed like it was a little unnecessary to me.
Fair enough. I think Justin Trudeau done a wonderful job through the people through the pandemic and let him finish his job. So it's been wonderful.
What a waste. What a waste of money, time, and energy.
Why do you say that?
Because nothing has changed. We spent how much? $600 million? For what? Nothing has changed.
Frustration.
It's unbelievable to me that we went through $600 million for about a difference of 6 votes with the different parties. They all ended up basically the same, so when I counted it up this morning, it was about 6 different seats changed. Liberals went up 1 or 2, the Conservatives went down 1 or 2, Green picked up 1, so it's about $100 million a seat for that we wasted that money on. It's just horrible, it's pathetic, and he should be ashamed of himself for calling it.
I was disappointed that we were having the election, but then we had the election, and you have to bring forth so many important issues. Climate change, housing, poverty, there's just so many issues there.
I'm surprised. I'm not upset about it though, but I am surprised. How? I did not think the Liberals were going to get in again. I thought people were more upset about the last couple years.
I think it's what we wanted. I think it worked out probably the best way possible. And they're going to have to work together to get things done, you know, so I like both of the top 2 parties, the people in them and that, so.
Well, as I listened to the political discussions over the last number of weeks, I wasn't impressed that any of them could really do the job that needs to be done. But after saying that, I was kind of looking forward to the Liberals winning. We're bringing in a guy that's worked at it before. He might have more experience and might do something. But the rest, they all say pretty well the same thing. Some little differences, but I was tired of listening to them. But you got to vote on somebody.
Both Canada and the world have changed profoundly since the last federal election back in 2019, with the pandemic being a big part of that. But the political divide in this country is clear when you look to see who won both in the East and in the West. And with a 4th wave affecting different parts of the country, there's still much work to do here and abroad. We sent our cameras out to ask Canadians what monumentous tasks await the Trudeau government this time around. Our question.
What will be the biggest challenge for the next government?
I think the biggest challenge is to get everybody, the country, back together again, because we're so divided at this point, and we need somebody who's willing to get in and step up to the plate and really be accountable for what they say.
I think for the next government, it's going to be really difficult for them to bring down COVID inflation costs, because COVID inflation has affected everybody, not just certain businesses. It's affected even just regular people. So I think that's going to be something that's really difficult for them to change.
Clean drinking water in all our Indigenous communities. We have the largest freshwater supply in the world. There's no excuse for our Indigenous communities to not have it. None whatsoever.
I feel like the next challenge will be to get the people's trust. I'm not sure with the COVID situation how it's been handled. I don't know if people still trust the government right now. So I'm pretty sure the big challenge will be to get people's trust, make sure that they understand what's the situation, how we're going to be able to go through it. So I'm pretty sure that's the most important thing for the next government, be able to gain the people's trust again. Because a lot of people are divided between specifically that situation.
The biggest challenge for the next government is getting Canadians to buy into what their policies will in fact be. I think that we're dealing with a divide right now in society where a lot of people really don't have a positive outlook, what our future is going to look like. So instead of looking long-term, 10 years, 5 years, let's get more realistic and let's talk about the next year or two, especially with the whole pandemic. And we've had Black Lives Matter, and we've had the LGBTQ plus groups, and just everybody is saying, where as Canadians do we stand? Where are we going with this? Are we standing together? Are we united? Stuff like that. So I think that is a big deal.
Well, there's the deficit they piled up, and the whole transitioning out of COVID, and basically several things that have been neglected a bit during COVID that they'll now have to catch up with.
One of the biggest challenges, I think, is keeping the promises to the Indigenous people. And when we see what has happened in the last while, how the public have become aware of all the children that were missing and killed in the residential schools, I think that issue has to be kept to the forefront, and we have to do something about that.
I think the biggest challenge for the next government will be deciding exactly how we're going to get out of this pandemic in a coherent manner. What we find with the provinces that they have very different approaches to how we're managing this crisis. And that has created problems, everywhere, just because we can't coordinate effectively enough what we're doing.
I think environment is one of the biggest challenges we have to address. It's getting more and more important. And we know they talk about it a lot in campaigns, but afterwards we don't see a lot of stuff done about it. So more and more it's getting important, yeah. We have to address this.
I think coming out of COVID and rebuilding the economy in a safe way is probably going to be the biggest challenge.
I think another big thing is especially in Toronto, the amount of people on the streets, all the homeless. I feel like there's definitely should be a way where we can at least help them get on their feet and help them at least have a base of a life so they can move forward.
Probably the economy and the health crisis with the doctors, because I think there is a brain leak from Alberta. Many people are leaving that province from an education background, health background, and even the economic transition with environment. So because we talk a lot about global warming those days, as you heard what's going on in BC. So that's going to be a huge challenge because it's not just one challenge but a few at the same time.
Well, we talked about so many things today. The pipeline, COVID, American influence. I mean, we've got all kinds of issues.
And we think that it's in the right track.
But you think there's no shortage of problems?
No, I wouldn't want his job. No, we're grateful for any effort on our behalf. It's a big country, but we've got big neighbors.
I think that everybody has been hurt in some way or injured or had a difficult time in some way in the last year and a half or whatever it's been, and it's going to be really hard to get people on your side, whatever your platform is. It's going to be tough to get people to trust you and to gain trust.
Well, the rise of the PPC has me very concerned. I'm very concerned about the attitude of the people, and even this morning watching they're talking to one of the representatives, and he's still campaigning even though the election's over, and that means there's a lot of misinformation being sent out there, and I'm concerned about that.
I think because of COVID, it's going to be the biggest challenge, of course, is getting this country going again, and everything that will take, and the climate change too. Got to take that into consideration after the summer we've had. Oh my goodness.
When was the first black Canadian elected to the House of Commons? 1940, 1957, 1968.
1957.
68.
40. 68.
57.
I think 68.
57.
57.
I'd say 68.
57?
40, 57, 68.
68.
1968.
1968.
68. 68.
It's 68. Good job.
Thank you.
Lincoln Alexander was elected in Hamilton West as a progressive conservative in 1968, becoming Canada's first black MP. In 1979, he would also become the first black Canadian in a federal cabinet as Labour Minister in Joe Clark's short-lived minority government. Alexander also served as Ontario's Lieutenant Governor from 1985 to 1991, again acting as a trailblazer for black Canadians.
Many people who don't bother to vote may tell you that they feel their vote doesn't matter. If a certain riding favors a particular party, for example, those who vote for another party may feel their ballot is wasted. But we've also seen some elections resulting in just a few votes between first and second place, resulting in a recount. So we took to the streets to ask Canadians if they feel their decision made an impact. Our question:
Do you feel your vote made a difference in this election?
No, it didn't make a difference. Obviously, I lost my vote. And the problem with it, from what I see, is you got two men jousting against each other that really don't appeal to anybody.
it evened everything out, the playing field. Unfortunately, we have a couple of parties that don't matter. It took votes away. They kind of could have swayed things one way or the other, as we know. But unfortunately, we are with another Trudeau government, and it's going to be 2 years until he calls another election, and we're right back into the fire again.
For sure, I didn't really want the Liberal Party to win because that's who took it, right? So yeah, for sure, absolutely. And I think in the future it'd be great if there was easier ways to vote, such as online. I know that's harder, but just getting the people that sometimes can't vote because of whatever reason, I think it would make a difference. So
I feel in terms of the election, it helped the people that I voted for know that there are people out there that support other parties. So that should encourage them to continue on and keep pressing on, and eventually, hopefully, we'll see a change in government at some point.
I guess it always makes a difference. The point is to come out and express your vote, right? So my candidate won, and that way it feels like I made a difference, but ultimately just showing up is what's really important, I think.
It does make a difference, I think. I'm not too familiar with the logistics of it, but at least I made my vote count for myself, I feel.
Well, I'm from Ottawa, and in the riding where I am, no, because a lot of people vote the way they always did, and which is unfortunate. But we've got a lot of new Canadians now, and I think eventually the country's in a place where it's trying to figure out what it wants to be again, and it's pretty divided. So, did my vote make a difference? Overall, yeah, probably. In the riding where I live, probably not. I don't know.
I was kind of frustrated with the whole process, to be honest with you. It's like every election, all the politicians go up there and they promise so many different things. I'd love to take a look at history and see how many of those promises actually came to fruition once they were elected. You know, so to me, it's pretty frustrating. I already knew it was probably going to end up to be another minority government, so that's a lot of time and effort that just went out the door. But it is what it is, right? So
no, I sort of leaned PPC, but I was actually sort of responsible. Not that it mattered in my district here, Kitty Vitty, but I did vote for the PCs because I just wanted to get Trudeau out. But I could see how the Conservatives had a hard time getting a lot of support because their policies were so similar.
I did vote for the Liberals last time because they said they were going to bring in proportional representation, so my vote really would count. And obviously he didn't, so I didn't vote for him again because he lied about that. And I really think there should be proportional representation to make it fairer, and my vote would count.
I am a left-leaning thinker, but this time round I did not vote for the left just because I wasn't happy with some of the things that happened with the current party. So no, I do not think that my vote made a difference.
Yes. Why? It's good to participate in the democratic process as a citizen of Canada. So that in itself is meaningful.
It's more of the same. I think people were afraid of certain parties and going a particular way, so they just voted the same as they did before.
No, it didn't made because it didn't give you time. I didn't get to hear from all the candidates, right? And especially in my district of Kilbride, did see a few come by, but never really got to speak to anybody to find out what their issues were.
My vote made a difference, but it also didn't in this election because my riding went Liberal. My riding's representative is Lametti, so Minister of Justice. I voted NDP, so obviously my vote didn't elect anybody, but it did send a message in terms of popular vote numbers, I guess.
How about yourself? Did your vote, you feel it made a difference, yes or no?
My vote made a difference. Of course, we don't feel it on an individual level whether it made a difference or not, but in terms of the overall statistics, it makes a difference, and you got to keep that in mind.
I'd like to think so. I know that my candidate was a resounding success, so I'm happy with that.
No, until we have proportional representation, I don't think so. Because I generally vote green, and that means I'm throwing my vote away, really. Even though I didn't this time, but it's until we have proportional representation, no, I don't think it matters. We need to get that. But, Trudeau promised to do it before the previous election and didn't. This time he didn't even promise he would do it. So I'm not holding my breath to get proportional representation. I think I'm too old to see it happen.
I mean, proportional representation is what we really need, so no, I don't feel like my vote made a difference, but yeah.
Not really, no. I feel like we've flatlined and everything is pretty much status quo. We carry on from here after investing many days and many weeks of people's lives that probably could have been invested in other things.
Unfortunately, I don't. The only reason that I would say would be because the party that I voted for didn't really get a lot of votes, so I don't feel as though my vote really made a difference. I did vote for, someone that mattered to me and for a cause that mattered to me, so at the end of the day, I think that's really all that matters.
This was a hard-fought election, with the Liberals and Conservatives virtually neck and neck during the whole campaign. And some people will tell you they're not overly surprised with the result being a minority government. And others will say we're no further ahead now than we were when the writ was dropped. So we asked voters if they're satisfied with the way things turned out. Our question:
are you happy with another minority government?
It's a good thing and a bad thing. We're at a point right now where maybe a majority government is needed for a while. But it depends on how the parties in opposition decide to react. If they're going to oppose everything just for the sake of opposition, then that's not a good thing. But if they decide to try and keep a government in check, then that's a good thing.
I am. Yeah, I liked what the NDP and Singh was, essentially forcing the Liberals to do during the COVID period, and I assume it'll happen again, which will be a Liberal minority propped up by the NDP. I think is good for Canadians, so yeah, I'm in favor of that.
No, I would have preferred it was a majority. And why? Just easier to get things done, the majority government.
I guess, minority is better than a majority, so we'll have to wait and see what happens. That's another waste of money as far as I'm concerned, 600 million gone again, so oh well, it is what it is.
I just think that in terms of having the purpose of hosting another election and the decision to do this at this point in time, the hope was for a different result, and I think that in order to have made that election worthwhile, I would have hoped for a different result. So I don't think the result was worth the election.
I think it's not too bad. I mean, so you got balance, right? I mean, you don't dominate the whole thing and then do whatever thing you like. At least, another side will, keep a check on you. Yeah, that's how I look at it.
I'm not really quite sure. I mean, at the end of the day, we're all kind of struggling with this pandemic, and I don't really think it's about who wins. I think it's about who helps us all win as a country and win over this virus. So I think that's what really matters right now.
I don't know. It's okay. It's not my choice. I guess it's okay to have, because it's a greater number of people being represented, and the other parties can have more, more push and more say. So I am okay with the results, but of course I wish we had a different electoral system.
Okay, quite frankly, am I happy with another minority government? Everyone sucked this time around. No one brought their A game out. So it's good that nobody's got all the power, but I would have loved to just see better performance from our federal government. I mean, and our other prospective federal government candidates. It's kind of just really, it's not, the stuff we saw this election wasn't really encouraging to get people excited about government or, to care or any of that. And I mean, the results turned out basically the exact same government we had. So I think people kind of were just yeah, whatever.
I just think that there's just too much infighting at the moment. Not enough is getting done already with more of a majority before than there is now. So now we're just going to be at a lot of deadlocked, and politics are going to get in the way of actually making improvements for what is a very hard time for a lot of Canadians.
It's hard to be happy about ever having a minority government, regardless of who it is. It's hard to get anything done for anyone.
I'm happy with it because I think having three parties or four parties that will hold the balance of power will help negotiation and will help get some good compromises at the end of the day.
I find that whoever gets in there, they're going to try to do their best job possible, so you got to trust them that they will.
But I also find you got to have. It's better to have a minority and a little bit of a strong opposition, because if not, it's going to be too one-sided. So then there's nobody to oppose you. You can pass any law and anything if there's nobody to outvote you. So, I mean, it's probably better off just to have a very strong contender alongside.
I'm happier with the minority government. Well, I think the message has been clearly sent by the Canadian voting public that they want to see a cooperative government, not an autocratic one.
Well, honestly, I wish the government would have been conservative, to tell you the truth. I'm not happy with the Liberals calling an election right now, just for Trudeau trying to mandate for his hunger grabs. So, in a way, I'm very happy for minority government. I'm happy that I'm not happy that he won. I would have liked to see Aaron O'Toole win for the Conservatives, but I guess, you know, at least in that way, they still haven't got the majority government.
It means that the Conservative Party has to find something new to do, that this did not work for them. And I think that gives the Liberals more time to come up with a plan to fight the Conservatives for another round. And I think that the Conservative Party is left sort of in disarray. It seems that they're ideologically split. I think we see that with the PPC. I think they see that within their own party between social conservatives and fiscal conservatives. And I think that this election has deepened that, chasm between those wings of the party. And I think that is probably a big win for the Liberals.
I'm glad it's minority government.
Why is that?
Because I hope that a minority government will be forced to listen to one another a bit more.
I don't really feel any type of particular way with regard to the minority government, just because I feel as though not much will change. So it just feels very drab, not like much is going to occur or change.
I think it was the best alternative. I don't think Trudeau deserved a majority, but I'm happy that it was he who won the minority.
No.
Why not?
Well, because I would like to have more influence. Like, wouldn't we have more power, more influence to be able to make the changes that we need more effective? I mean, it's tough enough as it is with the way it's been.
We have universal health care because of a minority Liberal government in the 60s supported by NDP. So there's lots of things that can happen. So I don't see it as a bad thing.
Thanks for watching this episode of Outburst on CPAC. If you have any comments about this show or any other show, you can find us on social media. You can also find us on our website at www.cpac.ca. I'm Glenn McGuinness, and on behalf of my colleagues at the Cable Public Affairs Channel, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.